Major announcements coming out from President Joe Biden on splitting the stimulus bill in two separate parts, passing one, now passing another later. I'm gonna let you know what's been prioritized, what's unfolding, a lot happening. This is your stimulus check update, stimulus package update, and breaking news update. Biden calls on Congress to immediately pass major Ukraine aid package before more pandemic funding, saying we have got to get this assistance out to Ukraine immediately. We can take a look at more pandemic funding here in just a second. But you guys, we're hearing that things are intensifying with Russia and Ukraine, which is going to be impacting our economy here domestically. And people are saying we need stimulus checks, gas stimulus checks, child tax credits, free college tuition, free childcare, and assortment of different provisions to help out this time. As we're hearing prices, they're not going to be coming down anytime soon. And take a look, here is what it would take for another stimulus check to come in 2022, summarizing essentially that things are going to have to intensify with our economy and inflation, and Congress will have to unify behind it. Now also, we're hearing this might be needed in perspective with the pandemic, as take a look, you guys. We're starting to see an increase in case 110,000 new cases yesterday, with the 7-day moving average at 75,000. It is going up. We are seeing more and more cases, and we receive warnings of this that come fall and in winter. It is very likely we could see another surge of the subvariant of Omicron. So they're saying that we need more funding, and they're saying that more is going to be on the way. President Joe Biden is saying he is going to deliver. However, we don't have a lot of Republican support for more spending due to concerns of high inflation and adding to the nation's debt. Also, through the process of reconciliation with a majority vote, Democrats are not unified in passing it either. There are several moderate Democrats saying they cannot support more spending because they are too concerned about this record high inflation and making things even more expensive. So what they're saying is they are trying at this time to get Senator Joe Manchin on board to pass certain provisions to get through more assistance to people. However, if they cannot do so and in a timely manner before the midterm elections in November, we're hearing that President Joe Biden is also saying he's taken in consideration stepping up on his own by passing Congress and legislation and doing executive orders and executive actions for more provisions. We're hearing that stimulus is going to be split apart. They're going to pass Ukrainian aid now and pass other provisions to help with pandemic funding coming up here very soon. They are splitting the two apart. They try to pass them tandem so they could pass Ukrainian aid and pandemic funding together. But they're splitting them apart because it is urgent to get the Ukrainian aid right now. And then they're going to be working on more assistance, pandemic funding, more stimulus provisions, and the article says, take a look more details. President Joe Biden urged Congress on Monday yesterday to quickly approve a multi-billion-dollar aid package for Ukraine and before trying to pass a new round of pandemic funding, wondering that the U.S. aid for that country's fighters has nearly been exhausted. Biden's new position marked a reversal from his assistant last month. The military aid and the pandemic funding be bundled together, so going insane. Well, originally we wanted to pass this through as a strategy to get more funding passed, but now realizing it's not going to work and having to break the two apart. Decoupling the two bills significantly increases the chance that Congress will pass $33 billion in requested Ukrainian funding, while also demean the hope of $10 billion in pandemic funding relief that Biden was set necessary to supply vaccines and shots for this fall. And as we're hearing, a new wave is likely going to be on the way, and it could be a significant subvariant of Omicron, causing a lot of people to get sick during the winter and fall. Previously, I'd recommend that Congress take overdue action on much-needed funding for pandemic treatments, vaccines, and tests as a part of Ukrainian supplemental bill putting the two together. However, I have been informed by congressional leaders in both parties that such an addition would slow down actions that is urgently needed for Ukrainian aid. have been expressed strongly by several congressional Republicans, and we cannot afford to delay this vital war effort. Hence, I am prepared to accept these two measures, move separately so that Ukrainian aid bill can get to my desk right away. Biden on April 28 has asked Congress to allocate $33 billion intended to cover humanitarian and military aid for Ukraine through September. Hunter Biden's proposal, nearly two-thirds of that sum would go towards security military assistance for Ukraine as it fends off the invading Russian forces. And in the statement on Monday yesterday, Biden said that the additional funding is both necessary and urgent, with money for shipments to Ukraine set to run down in just 10 days' time. I have nearly exhausted the resources given to me by bipartisan majorities in Congress to support Ukrainian fighters. This aid has been critical to Ukrainian success on the battlefield, and we cannot allow our shipments of assistance to stop while we await further congressional action. His statement acknowledged that while there appears to be bipartisan support for the aid package, there is no such consensus for pandemic funding. Republicans have opposed Democrats' efforts to pay their money for Ukrainian aid with additional pandemic relief funding. So I call on Congress to pass Ukrainian supplemental funding bills immediately and to get it to my desk in the next few days. And then I urge Congress to move properly on pandemic funding. He stressed that more congressional action is required to address the pandemic. Without timely pandemic funding, more Americans will die needlessly, he said in the fall. If we are hit by a new variant, it will be too late to get the tools needed for protection, critical treatments that will be available in Europe but not in the United States. And we're hearing it is very likely that this tough variant is going to ramp up, and they're saying more funding is going to be needed. And if not, it looks like we could be going backwards on our battle against the pandemic. And we will see how Congress responds now. If Congress does not take action and provide more treatments, more pandemic funding, well, then it's very likely we're hearing that severity is going to be hitting around the fall and winter time. And it's very likely a lot of people are going to be getting sick at the same time, likely overrunning hospitals, having more people having a quarantine, or once again disrupting our economy and shutting things down. And if that is the case, there might be the argument again for more stimulus. Take a look, you guys. Here's what it would take for another stimulus check to hit in 2022. And pretty much the key points, just gotta let you know, rising prices have left many Americans struggling. We're hearing that with the war in Ukraine, the supply chain issues, the lockdowns in China, those prices don't look like they're going to be coming down anytime soon. Many people have signed a petition requesting another check. There is a lot of support in the nation for more checks. A lot of people requesting reoccurring checks, and a lot of people though saying no, stop the pending because inflation is out of control. There would have to be the appropriate support in the House and in the Senate in order to make stimulus pass. So in order to do it with bipartisan efforts, the traditional means we need Democrats and Republicans at this time. It looks like there is not that support there. So they would have to pass it through the process of reconciliation like we saw with the American Rescue Plan. Now at the same time, at this time as well, there is not the support there. We're seeing Democrats are trying to get those moderate Democrats is on board. But if not, there is also the option of the executive orders and actions from the president.